ICT, quando ba tecnologia, mas bem quando ba criar oportunidade para estudante sira, no mestre sira, ou ensa atu acesso ba aprendizagem e da nebe digital nebe ia dalam ba usa solar power niang né. Okay. Meu dia né, eu senti duco roto no be. Okay, bebe. Okay. Hey, printer. Okay. Ano? Bebe. Okay. Ya. Okay. Okay. Dia molok how atu hato apresentação ainda né, atu explica claro litang how apresenta o kani anglai, how introdução yang, how nenara Fatima da Silva Caldas, how anesang ICT officer, iha UNDP, baya projeto Pacific Green Transformation Project. Hanya background ia IT no hafote master degree ia contabilidade financeira nya, ia hanya paixão baya ICT atau ita los haredet ba ICT routing switch no selutang be ita bele famous baya educação nya liu si energia power nyang ne bat tambah barak liu ita usa ICT equipment ita usa ba eletricidade EDTL be waste tebes ita gastos barak be hane paixão para tu ita bele espalha dia klitang atau hadia di klitang ita nya area educação utiliza ICT equipment ho solar power memang iha no bele empoderamos colega feto sira laos setia dililarang mabe ia area rural nebema precisa tebe sitania fo atafahe conhecimento kalian tambah ICT o serviço Timor Telecom durante 2010 2010 toya 2020 no Etik Timor how nessa networking assistant, depois tu iria Van of Technology e depois vai a UNDP to Loron. Oh, sorry. Objetivo vai a solar ICT power ne nia atu for solarize by escola Siraotu nia assegura kata ICT lab ne ia power ne bema reliable no la fo interrupção by ia aprendizagem ba ICT niang. Dalam barak EDTL bele ahimate liu area rural daruma eletricidade la ia. Então ho solar power ne bema iha ita bele continuação ita ne aprendizagem sem ia interrupção rumah ba iha eletricidade. Nomos ba iha plataforma ba digital learning niang bototu bele lau dia. Ami tarjetu municipality makia municipio Toludet. Ami ia mana tutu manufahi no ainaro idane mai usi Ministério Educação Rasik nomos serviço muito ko People of Japan fansa amia fundador amia founding source e pirmai molo kami tu halo ICT lab ami se hahuluk ho estudo viabilidade ami ho fating ne bema precisa ami atu tahu sa ICT lab ami detekta ulu ke municipio sekolah dan bema ami atu secundária técnica vocacional menos TVs ia hiradet depois professor seremos limitação TVs ba ia ICT sira ne background IT la iha mas be como sira tu mai dili sira hateni tu ang kono ba seda ma Word seda ma Excel anta sira hanorin de tona hasta obrigatório tem que hanorin para emasir ne tem que hateni estudante sira tem que hateni para banhira molok sira toy dili karek sira la lakon ho estudante sira be mai dili bele hakerek neti karta rumah bele halon neti dados rumah ga CV dan ema sirne mas be atu hatene klean litang ne sira mínimo ho tu kerang nebe hau espera kata bota be mau fai informação ba maluk sirene liliu TLNOG nasa Timor Leste Network Operators Group imi bele fomos imini ideias hanoing rumah para merua imi bele share imi knowledge ne bema imi iha ba iha a escola sira ita lalika precisa den tem que fundos mo foi ita lau para ita tobe fahe teni matenik la ia be ita ho willing to do ita hamutu ita bele contribui ou se tem arasi tem tempo ou tem passion ita bele hanoi tem maluk sira fahe teni conhecimento sala ne ami detecta que ni eletricidade ne hira para tu bem hira ami tem que hatene keda ninia measure bototo para ninia solar panel tem que fornece eletricidade ne bema hanesang mai equipamento sira tama dela rumah equipamento barakliu solar panel mai simo eletricidade mai bateria mos lato então buat cerne sai bele falhanço to foi da nema kami identifica kata ita precisa socket eletricidade yang ne ia 19 inclui Holland depois ni notes eletricidade ne cada fating yang ne ligação tu reclara nini você ita botera re desenho ni ia be 36 depois ni capacidade ia 16 kilowatt ba furnitur ami rasi fornece furnitur ya larang molo kami halo seda asitile ami se halo le renovação baia uma kakuluk no buat serseluk eletricidade depois estamos cadeira ba estudante sira nomos ba mesa nebema próprio duni adequado duni para sira tutur no halo sirnia estudo hodiak e depois nia dimension ba be sala nema ka ia vários escola balu atlos ia sala nebema ituan los asan tela balu bot balu que be da rumah tamata escola ne bema sa rural teves dia hansa ita botare before ten escola ne laia botida nia mamuk teves mamuk los quase ia escola balu hanesa escola exame aqui de Ruhun escola geral secundário nia como sira ne STV mas be sira hanoing atumuda ba iha secundário geral tambah seda tambah recurso ba iha IT yang ne la iha e depois sira nia mindset hanoing kata yang teknologia ne la dung importante da sira tu takatang escola ne atumuda ba geral tambah de toi dane depois halo limita estudante sira dia dia klita halai ba area agricultura kita halai ba social ita laiba bocelo lali ka IT tamba IT sera maia ite ne recurso det mus laia ema laia noring ema oto idili oto laia da makia municipio ebe ho buat ne bema ita halau ami osi ni implementador fornece halo nia escola ne continua no agradece to en Loron boto to dia no espera batino wene bele recruta estudantes barma ia hanoi ato aprende lita pior que ita agora tama na nação Ásia ita precisa tene digital né importante tebes vai ter Moris Loronia a sore na bama ka depois de instalação computador a me fornece ia computador 465 cada escola ida hetang 45 36 sorry 31 sorry 31 nebe fahe ba escola 15 ida ba professor 30 ba estudante sira ida ba professor ida fali ba UPS musanesang cada PC ia kedang ninia UPS mol UPS ia ninia ligação ia kedang ia access point ida cada escola ia sira ami mus fornece printer ia projetor ia include honinia project tripod screen iha ami mos tahu barak para ho dimonta switch ho modem sirna bema iha furniture dan soalnya dia ami mos fornece Microsoft Office Home student nomos Office Pro profissional inclui ho ativação completo sem sira atau halo level ativação tinang-tinang vene permanente na projeto ne consiste ba solar panel ia solar panel ne nia PV modul né importante tebes ba hansa componente importante da tu converte lorong matang ba energia osi lorong matangnya tu ba eletricidade. E depois nia função importante né maka tu be fornece eletricidade durante iha lorongnya. Especificação hansa hawaker kona ini ni capacidade cada solar panel ida nih ya 27,3 kilowatt peak. Depois kami utiliza cada escola ada 39 solar panel. Ya cada solar panel nih ya capacidade nih total ya 700,5 watt peak. Depois íamos hybrid inverter. Hybrid inverter nih convert hosi direct current power hosi solar panel by bateria li hosi AC power ba equipamento no bema iha depois nia fornece eletricidade sem ia interrupção rumah durante halo mudança bahia eletricidade EDTL niang bangira eletricidade hosi be solar panel niang ne ramata langsung inverter foti kedang ini serviço para tu muda kedang bahia EDTL niang nebe hosi ita hanesang ita monitoriza o sistema det ninia capacidade ba sistema niang nema cada inverter ida ia 24 kilowatt AC. Utilização kami usa 3 inverter mas nessa arena ba cada inverter ida ia 8 kilowatt AC. Íamos rak bateria nebema ka nia foti energia nebema mai hosi lormata mai tama inverter depois hahu tama fali bateria se conserva energia nebema iha foi kanu luto kalang hosi bateria mak se fornece flafali energia nebema ohin ni foti ne saiba depois me foi inverter troca fal se bengira bateria ramata inverter muda fali bahia eletricidade EDTL niang. Nanti hau se foi simulação nia hau foto si be TikTok hau nasik la bene. Oke, capacidade bateria ne ia 26,6 kilowatt hour. Nia utiliza bateria 5. Cada bateria ida 5,22 kilowatt hour. Íamos MDB. Cada equipamento serve o yang menciona nene sira ia sala ketak. Sirni sala ne separate. Lahan mutu kia ICT lab. Iha ruangan ketak ida ami tahu sira ne konserv ketak ho sirnya access point mos ketak sirla inclui hamutu kelarang. Sira mos sistema ketak perlu dikontrola by da namba. Nebema main distribution box ne ia cable chamber MCB ho di sign yang fo energia sai combiner in-camera indication ya common in-camera. Oke, iha tipu instalação ba solar panel iha tipu rua. Tipu ida mako iha rooftop, tipu ida iha ground mount. Ida tipu da iha be ground mount ne ami ba iha munisipio rua de iha Fernando Lasama ni iha Inaro SG. E depois ida tang mako natarbora. Tambah sirninya rooftop ne la suporta hahu si sirni ring sirni fondasi bahia sirni bangunan ne rasik la suporta para tutau solar panel. Antang sira halo ia grounded. Anessa mos iha Fernando Lasama ni sekolah. Osi rooftop niang modelo mansane. Osi mai parte limang losnya itare ya laia botida depois de instalação solar panel taya rooftop. Ya parte ground installation nya makansa itare. Ya mai parte soring ne sirahu si foundation kan? Foundation nya mau di hari biasa hari uman yang ne. Si hari tirane depois mak foi monta fali solar panel né. Nia bene hanesa ngotudet 39 solar panel. Idane mana bele play lega manumbi. Bele ajuda play hela ninia benene na bana karek. Mana clique a imagem tu me aika. Boleh play it. Play dia. Oke. Oke lah. Kayaknya boleh serenete kali escape dia, depois mak play karik. Mana escape dia? Site o sini PowerPoint. Oke. Ini kan boleh play us nih. Mana bafali imagem o ini. Lah. Ini nih. Mana play itu na? Media nih bel. Oke. Kamu udah pas laut coba. Dan depois ita beralih ini simulação né det. Poinsa lorong matang, ita putih lorong matang, tahu bahia inverter, depois muda inverter mais bateria, depois fornece fali osi durante lorong né, sira usa det. Ini dia kono gari. O medela dikda Oke, então explica det. Bele cek TikTok nya, ini bane. Muda boing né. Oke. Jadi hosi PV nanti lorong matang fornece lio si PV-nya bahia inverter depois mak sei fornece bahia a bateria ni se ensi bateria halo bateria da uhin 5 ne hal na kono hotu e depois mani foi bafali inverternya per loads bahia itania uma kaya sala ICT lab niang bahira bateria ne bahira lorong matang tone tuk 5 o balu gatuk ne na lorong laiana então foi kalang ni usa bateria niang energia mais bateria ne fale bateria ne fo na fating conserva to ora sira ora swalo ansane ora mata foi inverter ne hare bateria ne low on anta ni usa fale main power yo si grid niang o si EDTL. Okay. A gente bele entende dan itu. Kita kuliah lais lio ne bele serane. Oke. Ida nema amni sala be será battery room ne bema ia kada sekolah ne. Sekolah 15 ia Timor Leste so sirane 15 sekolah ne mos ia área rural. Debe karik mau sirene mana sirene akara halo formação ba mestre siramos pronto los akara ka tu aprende. Ne par siramos bele continua to hanori na fating. No siramos akara klos atu aprende. Nós iramos sacar a tu hanorin tan sirni colega mestre sirseluk para tu mantém hanorin sira estudante sira. Nebe sir diang ami nunca barok. So ia parte ai naron yang nema. Ami usu tamasera ma feto la bele tuir ai tin yang ne. Tama diang rai maliring nebe biasanya ising rua heldet. Nebe sir diang ne mana ami feto susah itu yang mana do antala sana. Sorai mana sir nema bele be. Oke. Lanjut lah. Dan nema salah benenya. Nema buka feta ICT ini parte ainaro itala lika kolera. Maluk sira rumah ainaro kar ket sentiang. Alimar rek. Oke. Biak tirmai yang tarboran yang ICT lab nebe maka mos hosi eletricidade EDTL. Sira hosi 15 ne hosi lorong matan det. Ita lah gastos bobot tidak. Ita nia gastos nema ba equipamento. Ida nema ami mos deliver treinamento ia tipo tolu hat. Ia treinamento da nena ami fo ba iha ICT no non ICT. Ami fo matéria nessa Microsoft Office, ami fo conhecimento itu ia cloud, iha artificial intelligence, iha virtualization, ami mos foi informação basira né, ne hosi amnia ICT consultant, ami fahe ba lorong 5 ba ICT teacher, lorong 5 ba non ICT teacher. Ita diang ICT teacher, mas sir background los ICT teacher, tamba det sira hatene ICT tuang, mak sira mos tama ambol ICT retona. Nebe sira mos asa fiar siramos aprende, cair switch ne anusa, configura anusa, sira obriga sirneam para tu atender. Idane non ICT teachernya, ami sai foto grupo, depois de halo treinamento hotu, ia soring ia ICT teacher, sira ia 30 pessoas. Tuir fali treinamento ba ia o insa tu halo operação no manutenção ba equipamento ICT sira. Jadi la os det be será ita tene det Word, Excel, mas sira tene para o insta tu halo instalação ba equipamento serne sobo, sira sobo o tu computador, sira halo fle fale. Ia equipamento balo o insta para tu utiliza o de hamos computador, la bele hamos na rara hamos det, ida nemos ami fornece o tu informação para sira mos atenen. Dala rumah kan itarai hela equipamento ICT, emano ini estuda det, mos em la tenda to hamos ore labadai na kono, buat cerne, bele estraga fodak heng, buat barak. Tebe anoring hotone o si parte Telkomsel sira ma bahala instalação, anoring buat ne, equipa ba treinamento operation and maintenance maidane. Tuir fala ami mos treinamento, baia mecanismo ba manutenção ICT equipment inclui ho ICT lab niang. Erane ami for formação baia DNIT, Direção Nacional IT iha Ministério da Educação niang. Dari ema iha 15 pessoas, sira ne masei banhira ami hasa implementador layana, o si ICT officers, ICT focal points da escola, se contacto basira ma kodi nanti sira masei zera iha larang na ba. Tuir mai mi grupo hamutuk hobe companhia na be makalo treinamento bedane idane estudantes ira começa a runa halo aprendizagem by ICT amimos fornece internet gratuita basira durante tinang ida no se extende batinang rua o si diretamente o si classific by satellite monta kedang hona ho sirnia antena instalação bototu concluído. E essa hanya reflexão ida katak yang solar power ICT lab ne bele italos bele yang halo de 15 escola na badet dane hasa piloto ida baita para kari ita bele hanoing hamutuk para hato hela ba bot sira hanoing para expandang itania dane ba he oing atu satu menghemat atu hemat be energia ne tanpa usa EDTL. E depois laos det ia 15 escola be mai município tolo, mai be bele vamos ia município Circelo. Haunia será experiência ne ma bele tenemos baia experiência baia projeto nia solarização, mas que ela tem solarization no insa e tá tendo kata ia Timor sidau que escola da kona solarization. Ami buka momento na ami buka los ema atu parhalo instalação mas be barak liu ya eletricidade ho elektro mas be ba solar ne ema la ia. Okay. Nebe vamos inspira atu saya treinador berharap ya depois berharap atu fo empodera para colega feto sira ita labele se how fibra optica los det se how networking los det maybe buka para tu hateni lutang o insa atu bele mo sai lidera ia ICT niang o ia parte selu i barakli haware gender discrimination for women in ICT, right? Quando ihana evento rumah feto ICT ema nunca bolo mas ema bolo mana det meh na ba atu sai barai liur mas hanesang feto hela tedet sik mana ma baret. Okay, agora dane kita espero kata baweng kita tem que mantém hamutu colabora serviço hamutu para fetomos bele foti a área ICT niang. Okay, então a minha apresentação maneira quero que question and answer please do let me know. Ya pergunta rumah. Yes, please.
Sorry, my question is in English. You've got each one of those computers has a power supply that's converting AC back to DC. Did you have any consideration for having a DC power distribution in the classroom so everything's on DC and you minimize the conversion from battery DC to AC then back to DC?
We already measure it. Thank you for your question. We already measure everything before we did the installation and configuration for the ICT labs. As you may know that 39 solar panel is already installed. It's based on the feasibility study that we had before the installation. So it will combine only for the 31 equipment for the computers and for one switch and for the other ICT equipment. So it's already calculated for the ICT equipment and solar panel, how kilowatt hours, how kilowatt peak to, so it will be not interrupted. But in some case, if the battery is not function well or is that interruption, then we will need power from the main power from EDTL. But sometimes the power from EDTL itself has a problem. It has a problem because they have a problem with the cabling from starting from the grid to the school. They only provide the small cable. So we already, it happens in Manufahi. We already talked to the detail to make sure that they change the cable for the proper one, so they can, and then for the solar, it will be already good because the study, feasibility study is already have it all. Yeah, thank you. If you have any questions, okay, sure, thank you. And for other college, please.
Dia tambah, desculpa, mas Fadilo, tambah questão de tempo, me
Okay.
limita perguntas. Mas,
Okay.
mas oportunidade ida tambah colega participante ser Timor, kari kia perguntas rumah, ida dete, limita
Oh,
ida dete.
Mana Eliza.
Mana Eliza.
Okay. Yes, please, Mana.
Mana que traduz lolos.
Dia, boa tarde, ba colega Sirahoto. Boa tarde, Bana Fatinha. Agradeço o conhecimento de Faina Miami e de interessante tebes. Quando ba atu poupa e tem gastos, e tá tene, há gastos de ba utilização de energia e Timor ne macas tebes. Imagina, Loron ida ita gasto $1 nela toira. Nebe ba quando itanoia tu abambairua ia usa duni painel solar ida ne hone perguntas magne ba residência se nebe makho ninia por exemplo nia ia salão bar gituan bele gala ia futuro itanoia tu instala cada residência hone nia painel solar em termos de atu minimiza e tinha gastos ba iha banheirita sosa pulsa fulan no ainda ne mos sai preocupação bem tá nebe ne hone perguntas mais ne iha ona galai husi UNDP durante ne halau survey rumah ba halau instalação ba residência casa asa uma privado ne iha ona galai Ka durante nene implementação ne ba ia escola de ou ia ba ia área rural ser de.
Okay.
Obrigado.
Diak. Okay, obrigada, Mana Eliza. Diak, pergunta sobre Diak, Mana. Yeah, Pacific Green Transformation Project, we have 3 outputs. One output is, we provide 1,000 solar panel for household. Yeah. 1,000 household for each solar panel. Debe ia area rural debe ke samiadet papele lao, emadet mus lao bene. Debe sira dalam rumah lao to horas tolo horas hat foi tohi uma, hola barik sira debe ma escola, sira usa liling se sira osang ia paro de hola. Se sira la osang la ia to hola liling, sira studa soloron det, kalang sira to botona. Idane mi fornece solar panel, holampu ang ida, bele ba parsira usa e depois mos fornece halu itong ba projeto yang speaker tong projeto yang mana e depois siramos fornece ba fogão da be halo si rai yang ne fogão rai yang ne fornece para 100 household. Depois bahia INFPM ita botera tene Instituto Nacional bahia farmácia yang ne bema conserva e moro iha Kampung Alor ida na vamos usa solar panel hotu ne kalau quase solar panel hira kare hamos ladong apare dane informação dane mebe dane sirni inauguração los tena foi em halo ene be baseia ba sekare kita tu halo bahia uma parece hoje parte de tel halo eletricidade mas sekare ita cara ita bele hatene itania utilização ia uma ne masera zelera ia hira itane lampu ne hira depois tem itane kaum de totalmente ita lah tene da ita tene ita usa energia mas kilowatt hira ita lah tene watt hira mas ita usa ba telefone kan sekali charge nedet mus ita lah tene então se ema usi parte eletricidade mas tene buat sene sira bela halo estudo per cada ema ida hanusa sira bela fan fale solar panel ka o ita makrasik ba solar panel mas halo instalação ida ne depende ba serna tambah ita rasik telah tene ia umani ita tu usa será cada eletricidade ba televisão ne kilowatt hira lah ya ebe ausente mai dane ida output trini mak ida ICT lab ami desenvolve ICT lab ne
Tang dia tamak ne obrigada barak Mana Fatima nebe mai fahe ona conhecimento ba ita kona ba solar power ICT labs ami usu Mana Fatinya manteng na fatin lai ami ya pressão ida tu entrega ba mana am convida Mana Eliza atun bele maya oing o de bele taratais no entrega token de apreciação ba Mana Fatima dan ita bolo women support woman ga sira bye bye. Beijo. Ya, obrigada barak. Bele, hola fila pating. Você já toquem. Itaú tu de Bahasa Lima. Ya, obrigada. Bele, hola fila falfate. Turmai, ho respeito a mi convida Maun Cesarino Isok Rosa, husi FDCL, no dar FDCL Seirmen. Nebe se me kuliah kona ba free software and open source training in Timor-Leste. Catalyzing digital growth. Fating no tempo a mi entrega.
Dia butare dali datang, butare betahu tu. Dia honarang Cesarino Rosa, how representa FDCL. Fundação de Desenvolvimento de Software Livre. Dia ini mai how say hodi how nia paper kona ba free software and open source training in Timor-Leste catalyzing digital growth. Antes itahu I how apresenta uluk serem FDCL. Dia FDCL hanesang fundação independente ida na nebe non-profit nebe ami promove software livre e open source exemplo nessa Loron kolega sira training yang sa lorong ruan dilarang hanueng oke. Oke, durante lorong ruan dilarang hanueng mau sira config buat barak device sistema operativo sirne quase usa Ubuntu kaya aplikasaun da naran surikata nemos open source nebe ita la sadar kata ita usa el open source tamanemak durante tinambarak ita koko socializa free software no open source rasik hanesang mana misiona kata kono ba estabelecimento lab ba escola ne oportunidade diak kinang koutung mos ita ami mosi halau pilot project ho profesor informatika e STM ami halau pilot project ao mesmo tempo ore mana sirania projeto mos tamana ba espera estabelecimento lab sirne bema completo ami bele suporta voluntariamente ba escola sirne bema kari precisa tutor ami bele suporta. Oke, ini mai hau koko kuliah Batolu. Ida kono ba Timor Leste is expanding digital landscape. Ita tene kata itania plano digital ba 2032 parte educação mas misiona as pilar importante na ba tamanema kita tama ami foca ba formação eduni nebe noen centro formação lilibo open source dili ne fatin ruadet ida maka hadumi timor rasik koleya nicoleno siramos loke ao mesmo tempo estamos loke se ansa open source ni cultura mak itani colaboração ne ida nemak sai sabe ba open source nia open source project sir. Então ila falitama kono ba free and open source software. Hanoi kata ita la sadar kata quando ita usa open source rasik hanoi campo trabalho ba ita horin na coloque. Tamba realidade factos kata colega sirne bem utiliza kami fokus ba pesquisa free and open source software nia waga sirne yang absorbe kata colega sirne bele hetang serviço iha fatin sirne tamba quase yang servidor sirne insau maioria usa Linux antau colega sirne bele serviço na ba. Oke, tambah sama kita usa free no open source. Tambah primeiro reduz custo, licença. Tambah lema kan sa nação que asa Timor, hanoing precisa tomatização ba idanemos tambah quase yang sa iha plano orçamento, hanoing ba pesquisa ladung barak ladung bot então ita dekli utiliza sasanga software ne bemak nia preço ladung bot. Ida tamak ita build local digital independent. Hawan sasita ituang kono ba primeiro ministro India Narendra Modi nia kuliah katak independensia lolosne independensia ia era de agora independensia lolosne ia independensia iha teknologi rasik. Tamanemak free no open source software loke dalam ba ita para ita bele independente lolos iha teknologia. Ita tamak encoraja ita encoraja ita encoraja ita nia hori halo transparansi inovação. A cultura open source quando ita desenvolve nia projeto ita soe ba GitHub ne facilização ida ba ita kata source code ne be nakloke ita bele modifica tu ita nia vontade tamanema iha kultura open source mus bele hanoring ita transparansia, neba. Hotang promove colaboração. Iha open source buat colaboração importante tebes. Tamba projeto barak hanesa LibreOffice project nebe fundação FDC Rasik mus contribui modul balong iha LibreOffice. Inaba ita bele colabora comunidade global sira. Liwansa comunidade open source ya Brasil, comunidade open source ya Indonesia, ya Asia ita bele colabora dia. Oke, objetivo ita usa FOS hori hanesangan sa fundação nebe mami consisti kata formação focal liu ba free ou open source software. Objetivo ida maka ita build ka ita koko prática Linux no sistema open source rasik. Depois objetivo da ruang ni mag ita desenvolve ita nia comunidade local sira. Tinambarak ita mos colabora ho estudante sira ho professor sira ita hatomangang habitu ita aprende Linux samuto que sharing itania conhecimento bamalo. Depois objetivo da tolongnya itare naba integra FOS e educação. La sala periode rua liuba itani curriculum multimedia liuba professor sira SMA. Inaba livro ne menciona free open source larang. Asa quando ita utiliza modul ne de prática software sira quase usa open source tu mabe ane são em mana de nota kata sirania skill ka capacity lato no ba então sira norim bot kita kida tamane hora jam ilane ma ami koko hal observação kata ilane te precisa hadia tamane ma tinang kotuk ami koko hal pilot project ho professor STM sirap ita hatomangang usa aplicação free no open source nerasik. Depois integramos ba open source ni force tam integramos ba business rasik. Ita tene kata companhia gigante sira ya mundo, siramos iha project ho comunidade sira. Por exemplo, ansa Meta mos iha ni comunidade da open source, Meta open source, Google mos iha ni comunidade rasik. Tamanema kandu open source ni iha mundo da business ni ya itama ba mundo business, open source mos força boa tira na ba. Tambah sira cria produto ida depois sira soiba comunidade depois comunidade contribui sira usa produto ida ne bel saimos business. Então exemplo ida open source project tama iha rana business ida mak Google Chrome rasik. Sira fotik aplikasi da Chromium depois sira modif halo saiba business. Ida ne exemplo ida. Maybe iha FDC mos ita koko eduka itania join sira hari sira nia startup depois sira startup terasik fokus mos ba open source. Exemplo ida masa alimbalong ita motiva sira koko creation startup lil ida mak extra box sira foca utiliza open source hodi bel halo negócio. Ida tam falimak open source ni inspira ita bele sai inovatif litang ita bele sai entrepreneurship. Exemplo hanesa projeto balong desculpa how menciona itu simile ni project sira quase sira ya companhia mebe sira lançamos produto open source no ba fanadak sira halo sistema open source sira lança ya GitHub. Então ne asa motiva colega Timor sira quando gosto mete open source ita bele join ho sira comunitas. Okay, amni fundação rasikmos iha formação ida ka iha academy ami hanarang TLNOG academy rasik ita create itania modelo hanoring ita foco ba hanoring sira usa Linux, depois usa open source software e web tools, depois cyber security, depois cloud ou networking basic. Matéria sirane ita koko hanorin sira inglês, depois karik sira compreende ita translate mos o liante tu. Tina danemos ami lokena amnia programa ne kada tina ngida ami loke daldap hodi rekruta kolega sira bele join. Oke, ni impacto open source rasik ni impacto ne mak ita reduce ni custo ne rasik, depois ita promovemos ita nia ka eleva ita nia skill iha mundo IT. Depois sugere governo precisamos adoptar aplicação open source sirne e sirne projeto para comunidade sira bele colabora siramos. Ida tambak social stronger collaboration and community innovation. Significa ita bele halo colaboração ho comunidade open source sira tanto local e tanto internacional. Okay, nia challenges ho solution. Durante amni fundação ne hari nia sa challenges ba ami nomos ba amni beneficiário ida mak limita internet access, mas graças a Deus UNDP ne projeto bele estabelece lab serne ba escola sira e hanoi manane apresentação em Furak e depois de conferência ne hanoi ita bele colabora karek precisa tutor rumah e ami pronto suporta. Ida tambak língua nerasik. Cada vez amnia kolega barak mo sansa nia kewalahan ne iha língua rasik tamba ita quando join ba comunidade global ita precisa atende mínimo liang inglês ou português. Tamanemak idanemos liang nemos sai faktor faktor importante da bami. Hotag lack of awarenesses. Lack of awarenesses significa tag ita sidau kia consciência neve dia kodi utiliza ka implementa free or open source software. Hanweng orsida exemplo ida makanesa mong ramong nia ema Espanha e nia quase utiliza Linux tinambara kona não é loa Mauraimon tamba ema que utiliza Linux tinambara kona e nessa motiva itamos então ni solução mas era solução mak ita durante nemos ami iha aplicação seta halo matéria offline hodi hanoring colega sira. Depois matéria sirnemos ita traduz o liang inglês bateton depois ita provide ba itania beneficiário sira leliu alin sirne be mazoing ham ni comunidade ne. Depois solução de tam ita tem que campanha makas anoing open source ne ema utiliza barak anoing laos organização da rua det mo usa mas be anoing precisamos hadomi timor ne presença mos ita reconhece e nomos mau Raymond sirania organização ita hamutuk para ita colabora bele dudu open source ne boy. Okay, nia case example mak ami koko recruta jovem universitário sira nomos escola secundária sira mi koko recruta sira depois sira nema ambro si sai treinador ba fali rede professor sira bema ami estabelece da down e o sira colega sira nema bele hanorim fali professor SMA sira e depois orsida ami recruta colega sira depois colega seremos orsi se desenvolver open source system management by escola seremos ami target ba. E depois abimos educasira unsa bele colabora ho comunidade para halo inovatif ulita. Ini mak aminya sa policy recommendation ida kata ita tingki integra fosnya ba iha edukação maske durante ne asa ni curriculum ba multimedia law bebe professor sira prática laos iha livro larang bebe laos iha baseia ba modul nebe ia bebe sira prática foro si livro tamane maka ami ho inisiatif kata ita ami koko cria rede professor multimedia para orsida professor sira bele hanoring baseia ba livro nebe mak Ministério da Educação produzo. Ida tamak ita encoraja ba público para bele adopta open source tools. Depois criamos local source community e depois colaboramos com o governo, academia, com indústria. Triângulo ne importante tebes. Tamba si kungida la forte ita ne desenvolvimento sila bawang. Exemplo hanesang quando ita sa resource dia mas parte balon la suporta noeng de sila bawang. Tamane mak triángulo ida government, academy o industry ne tenki karbalo meeting. Exemplo hanesang kompanיה lokal ida nara one of sira homik uja mekanisme ida ne hodi rekruta lokal talent sira ne bem fundação rasik produce depois sira rekruta fali hodi bele siru samuto ko sira ida ne as exemplo dia ida hodi dudu proses teknologia ne laboi. Conclusão mak free and open source software improve Timor-Leste digital growth. Ida tam ni conclusão segundo mak kita tem que investir treina di dia kita nia local capacity. Depois kita tem que criar tecnologia da sustentável, inclusivo, independent digital system. Anoing una apresentação makina net e obrigado barak.
Diag obrigada Bang Cesário. Ar colega sira ya perguntas, ami limita ba perguntas emana ida det. La iha? Selai. Ya. Selaiha ami husu atu Cesário na fatihan elai. Ami convida fila fale mau ze der presidente TLNOG atu bele entrega hela token de apreciação. Daw tu ne basta lima. Diag obrigada. Bele hola fila fale fati.
Tuirmai ami bolu Senyor Ramon Roca, husi Guifi Foundation Board, atu apresenta con aba Building Open Share Internet Access and Capacity for Timor-Leste. Obrigada. Fating no tempo ami entrega.
afternoon. No, okay, you hear me. My name is Ramon Roca. Agradecido for this. Agradecido, first of all, to TLNOG for organizing this great event. To the Forces de Defensa de Timor-Leste for hosting that event. Internet Society, APNIC. Truly thanks. I mean, it's not just you know, for as a compliment, but as a, sorry, as a, you know, to be polite. It's also a true sentiment that I'm having, because, you know, when people think which is the most happy day in your life, most people could say, okay, when I got married or when I have my first son, things like that. Look to myself, I'm quite a bit old, so it was a long time ago, and certainly those were very special days for me and will be for the whole of my life. But today, I'm experiencing also very special sentiment that I would like to transmit, because being here, you know, for a few years ago, talking about peering, these kind of concepts, local transits, and so on, was so difficult. And with Red Esperanza, tell us, you know, we trying to push it was so difficult, open source, and now in a day like today, that is okay. Because when you're talking about internet, yeah, you can go to Timor Plaza and get a SIM card there, and you say, oh yeah, of course. I mean, we will, no doubt. But it's a different conversation that we want to talk about BGP and those stuff. And today I really realized that we are advancing. Timor-Leste is rising. We still have a lot of work to be done, but things are going in the right direction. We are talking about the right topics. Establishing a local internet transit, make those things are so important, and is the way to go. And so I get very positive feelings for today, and I wanted to start, not just provide agradecimiento, and also being involved when talking about security with Forces de Defensa, the Timor-Leste, to have everybody involved is so important. So having said that, I don't know if the presentation is there. So it's not just a courtesy, it's a truly sentiment that I would like to transmit by now. Who we are about Red Esperanza. First of all, although I'm, Stephanie told me, I came from Spain, but it was 3 years ago, and I feel like a Timorese. My apologies for not being able to speak in Tetun. I'm quite good in, my mother language is Catalan. It's not, although in Spanish, that's another complication. But my second home, if not the first in many times, it's here. So, and I have to speak because Teles doesn't want to. And say, hey, Ramon, do it. But please look to myself. I'm representing the Timorese society. And in this particular case, regarding Red Esperanza, is very much on the academia, schools, universities in Timor-Leste, which again, 3 years ago, were just users from the internet, but the internet itself started at the universities with ARPANET and become a commercial product sometime during the 90s. But already in the internet is as old as myself. I'm 60 years old. So, and started very much in that space. And here in Timor-Leste, we were missing that, and we want to build this kind of, because we want to participate within the building of the internet. And here there are a few logos, but tomorrow we will have a general meeting, and will be much more. Teles just noticed at me, oh, there are people missing here. There are lots. I'm very, very happy of that. And we are again as well. Non-for-profit. So people think, oh, Red Esperanza can provide internet. No, we build internet. It's a different concept. We are not an internet service provider, but we want to help in building the internet, and we are also finding ways. We'll explain you later. But we are not a private company. That's so important understand as well. Oops. Okay. Challenges in Timor-Leste. You know, you don't have to. It's very expensive if you compare in any other country in the world. The service is lower. I mean, in other countries, we are talking about gigabit speeds or 10 gigabits speed reaching the homes. Here it's like, looks like impossible. But I tell you, we will do in Timor-Leste. I don't know how long it's going to take, but we are here for achieving that goal. And there was no infrastructure, let's say, from the academia and educational institutions' point of view. No, there was almost nothing. So what we are doing, and which is very much, the other day I was observing the voting for the Internet Society for what's called the special interest groups. You know, from time to time, Internet Society members will vote for what's the most important. And they mentioned affordable access, internet education, community networks infrastructures, is what, and cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. By the way, also thanks to all the speakers before, because those topics were very well covered. In the gray, I had artificial intelligence at the very last, because I said, okay, this is the one that we are not very much focusing, let's say, from Red Esperanza perspective, but others do. Gabriel gave us a very nice example on that. And we, of course, when we have internet at the schools, we are teaching to the teachers how to use artificial intelligence, and it's so important. If not, teachers must, and students have to, it's important to use those tools. But we cannot, if internet is not affordable, if internet is not there. So, okay, we don't have a security problem if there is no internet. But so still, I'm happy actually to see that, because if you go in some other countries, affordability and availability is not longer a problem. But Internet Society still focusing on it, realizing that in many other places in the world, and we are one of the cases, still have to be, don't forget about it. It's good to talk about, in particular also for another aspect, and which Gabriel pointed very well, I mean, to protecting the Tatun and the local culture. I mean, but again, I mean, we don't have a cybersecurity problem or artificial intelligence if the people cannot access to it and the teachers cannot. So we still have to focus, but altogether we can cover the 5 topics, which is the good news, right? And again, non-commercial, but we build infrastructure. So, and I think it's a very important point, because, okay, in the private space, companies maybe compete each other, which is absolutely right. There is nothing wrong on that. But there is also something called a shared economy that can create potentially opportunities for reducing costs and so on. And in our particular case, we advocate also for shared access. I mean, a single fiber can handle almost all the internet that actually happens in Timor-Leste, if it's properly managed. An example of that is the submarine cables reaching the countries. But it could also happen at the last mile. Later on I'm going to explain that, and that's very important to reduce the costs, be competitive, and the main point, whatever infrastructure we are building, in this case for community networks for accessing the last mile, is not competing to anyone, but actually we are advocating for providing to be, I mean, for instance, when we are laying a cable connecting ETGI and another school with GPON, is because we want to make it available to the citizens from the bottom-up perspective, but to the local operators. Actually, I feel sad somehow because we are installing many Starlinks right now, you know, because it became popular. But that's not, in the long term, that's not the solution. The solution has to be together with the local ISPs who are doing the job and the right, because when you go to Starlink, then we go to overhead, but maybe we are talking between Dili and Gleno. I will give you some examples. And something is wrong if it's cheaper to go to the satellites than to, fiber is so cheap, much cheaper than the cables for electricity, 10 times cheaper and much more durable because it's a kind of plastic. So have in mind on that, it reduces the cost. If we have to go to satellite because it's cheaper, something wrong is happening in the market and could harm the Timor-Leste economy, right? Because it means money that goes away. Okay, having said that, then problems. Again, maybe for being very at the last speakers, because it was very nice. Actually, I enjoyed the talk about electricity and so on, just on that, because one of the problems, if we are like us, I mean, I usually when I'm Timor-Leste, I'm not in Dili. I'm in Lawala, and the problems on electricity every day, power cuts and so on. Imagine how you can run an IT infrastructure from that. So, but the good news, and our colleague explained it very well, Timor-Leste is rich in many things, and another thing we are rich is in the sun. Every morning we have a lot of sun, we can charge the batteries. Actually, we charge 80 kilowatts batteries because when we realize that it works for the ICT also, for the residences, and so and if you size it properly, even you save money, which is good. I mean, if you oversize, then maybe you are spending too much. But if you size properly, because electricity is not cheap, of course, it requires an investment, but makes a lot of sense. And thanks for the examples and the good, because it's really a way, because in Timor-Leste, even, I remember 3 years ago, some people were telling to me, oh, but in the rainy season mount, that will be difficult, and so on. And now there are not only, there are proofs that even in the rainy season, every morning, God gives us with a lot of sun, and maybe the rain is in the afternoon. So it makes sense, okay? And the other problem, but now is being addressed, so thanks to ISOC for this support, is wholesale. And in the beginning, we started getting internet with, SIM cards and so on. In the afternoons, not working. I cannot. I don't have to repeat. You are aware of those problems. Then we use it other ways, but the way to go is submarine cable. So very exciting of the future that it's coming to Timor-Leste right now. Where we have deployed so far until now, I mean, some in Dili. I mean, tomorrow we are going to meet in Academia Musica. It's one of the partners, and here in Fatumeta is right. But majority are within the districts on the country. And okay, there are schools in every in all the territories. So our aim is to be everywhere and open to that. And here are some examples on where we are. And again, gateways, 4G, satellite, first the traditional, later on, last year, we were able to, before that we were doing with testing, and now we are also using that. But again, I mean, many people say, oh, we have no Starlinks. No, Starlinks appeared last year, and think, oh, that's the way to go. No. I mean, maybe right now, it's in some places, if you go in remote areas, of course, you don't have other options, actually. But in a long term, and Timor-Leste actually is not a difficult country in regarding to this aspect, because it's not that big, right? I mean, we can do in a few years, by efficiency cooperating all together, provide gigabit connections across all the districts. I'm 100% sure for that. To give you an example, where I was coming from, Catalonia is not, maybe it's even bigger than Timor-Leste, and it happened. 20 years ago was not like that, was like Timor-Leste now in the rural areas. But right now in rural areas you can enjoy 10 gigabits of speed thanks to the fiber, right? And then we are trying to share that internet access to everyone from the schools, of course, with Wi-Fi. And right now, what makes sense for the last mile is the GPON. We enabled a GPON. We have a few examples. For the high end, with Georgia we were talking now, and with GPON you can connect thousands of homes with just a single device, but also we have to design and help on that, and to make smaller ones for places like Manalima. Manalima is in La Cluvar, in Manatuto district, high in the mountains. So there also they deserve GPON technology. Maybe different devices, but we have to go for them. And yeah, we also, as academia, we are trying to build the tools we need. That, by the way, okay, this is network topology. To just have fun, I mean, the industry, in telecom industry, they used to say when referring to fiber to the homes, they say FTTH, right? Fiber to the homes. Having fun on that, we are saying fiber from the schools, right? That's FFTS, it's just the difference. So from the schools, we want to reach everyone, but very much is about installing access points, deploying cables, and we already have executed some example. Also, by the way, thanks to the support with APNIC Foundation. And as examples of the infrastructure that we are building, not just cables and GPON and so on, also, you know, servers, running the software virtualization, and for e-learning and everything. And very much based on open source. Very much not, 100%. So that's very important from our perspective. And going to the security, which is one of the main topics, I actually think that our focus is children, schools, people underage with the internet. So yeah, actually we also proactively from the schools, we want to protect our children, not to be exposed too much on the dangers. Actually this, and we are already doing this kind of stuff. And this example, TLNOG, is from is a screenshot that I took from the control panel from one of the schools that is running this kind of shields. And I wanted to point you something. Okay, there were 1 million petitions in a single day, in a very short space, and 9% were unsolicited ads. Typically, this kind of content is not filtered in the internet and don't have to be. I mean, of course, commercials and so on have to be there, and we have nothing against that. But when we have children at the school, we don't want them to be too much exposed to commercial ads trying to, you know, influence in they're willing to buy, and so they're getting consumists and so on. When our school is for learning, not to get commercial impacts. And that's 10% of the transit that is already blocked in this case. So what I mean is that this kind, when addressing to security, is not only crime or violence, which is more evidence. There are other types of content that eventually should be filtered, but being very carefully also protecting the freedom of speech and so on, so not for politics. So it's really something that somehow could get, you know, controversial or different point of views. So that's why it's so important to cooperate between the civil society, the academia, and the security forces in order to ensure that we provide, I mean, will not work if somebody want to address to this topic alone. We have to do all together. Security is a very, very important thing, right? Because, you know, this is the measure in our case, and we are concerned about that because it's about schools and about children. The second threat is the malware, phishing, and so on. And regarding to the threats, not to the internet peering and trusting while doing BGP, but for the end users, and in this case, children. So people trying to inject viruses or make frauds on regarding to that. It's the second most important threat that is happening. And in the school, particular school that was using all open source. Is Linux, so no Windows. Windows is a kind of honeypot that attracts all the viruses. So the numbers could could increase as a rocket. So it really measures. So people don't know, and just for browsing the internet and getting tons of ads that were not solicited, there is software that goes to these computers and telling this information. And this happens a lot. We are blocking quite more. And then the adult side. Many people say, oh, well, blocking is about adult sites. And of course, in a school, we try, okay, the school is not to watch this kind of content. But what I'm saying, the more obvious crime or this kind of content is not a major threat. There are many others which are somewhat hidden. And this is also an example of what we will like to share, our knowledge and our cooperation with other schools, with other communities and some other, okay, maybe many other, of course, blocking the commercials is not of the interest of everyone. I understand that. It's in interest of the schools, but maybe not for the private companies because it's a source of revenue. We understand that. But it's good to have a good filtering and not just go after the most evident crimes that are happening regarding to security, but also this kind of stuff which is in, those are the things that are happening in the internet. So yeah, and that's another reason, you know, to provide shared services in a place like the Timor-Leste Internet Exchange that I hope, I don't know when, I don't want to bet, but if next year, I mean, I'm looking to really, so I'm very excited for this coming future. About the servers, okay, having Seferino talk about that, this is all open source, you can do everything. Virtualization, we call it Kalohan Académico, to say the cloud, and Kalohan, why? Because it's in Timor-Leste. This infrastructure can be, we have infrastructure all over the world, cooperating with other communities, but we have infrastructure in Gleno, right? They're working there, and I know that there are other infrastructure running over, so we have to work all together. The only bad thing, now I have to load my presentation there, so I cannot try, but if I try to do the same real-time demo that Warren was trying to do yesterday, from Dili to reach to Gleno, in our case, it's even worse. We are not just going to Australia and then Singapore. Because in Red Esperanza, although we are using a domain name from Timor-Leste, the AS number that we are using was given by the communities in solidarity from Europe. So it means that goes to, if you look into the trace route path, it goes through Singapore and so on to Marseille in France, and then go to Madrid, Barcelona, just to access the e-learning platform that is in Gleno, but from Dili, right? And then from Barcelona goes back through tunnels because we are behind the CGNAT and some kind of that actually I have to feel shame for ourselves for doing it that way. But CERTI clearly points what should be the next thing to be done in the coming months, okay? And in the way that Warren was very well describing yesterday evening. And yeah, I don't want to talk more open source because I mean, having a good community here is what we have to empower, right? Also in the Internet of Things, I mean, raspberries controlling the solar panels for controlling the voltage. I mean, the voltage sometimes in EDTL you were describing very well. It's 100 volts one phase, the other phase is 300 volts, and it breaks everything, all the servers. Even if sometimes, and UPS is not a no. So you want to survive, we have to survive the nights, and it can be done. And we have many developments, so we have to get encouraged to see the improvements that, and work together and cooperate as well. This is the snapshot of, we try to also with using open source, because every hardware vendor for inverters and batteries and so on have their own software, but it's their own. If you change you are using others, they use another one. So we are also trying to use open source to be sure. For instance, here two battery banks. That's why there is two colors. And this is a snapshot taken last week. And last week we already had rains in Gleno. So again, in the morning, a lot of sun. In the afternoon, it slows down very quickly, but we still had enough energy if it's properly sized, and preparing experts trying and advice on that. I can tell us, and it makes economic sense also doing that. The problem is the investment, but it can be done even. I mean, even if you don't get grants, which was our case, we didn't got any grant for doing, but still have economic sense to do it, because I mean, again, electricity is not cheap in Timor-Leste, and we can achieve 100% of self-sufficiency. And okay, training and so on. Tomorrow we will make in the morning we will have a general meeting, following the same spirits, and everyone is invited. Some people, oh, you can get the membership. No, you just come, and I mean, it's just a matter of behave properly. Everybody can say whatever they want, but with respect to each other. So by following the same, let's say, etiqueta, that is, for instance, Internet Societies describe it, is very welcome for this kind of forum, and that's the local way, and for the education. And in the afternoon we will do practical part, also building the chip-on, using Fusion Splicer, but also starting from the very beginning. I found from the Director General and Fabnik I liked his introduction saying about what's internet is. We will start from that, trying to explain the history, how it's managed and how it's governed, because that thing, and understand that in Timor-Leste we can also build the internet, not just be consumers, right? And well, beneficiaries, I mean, being a schools, and having many, we consider a beneficiary every children that we have in our schools. So it's hard to say, but we have to be more, because the target will be, if in Timor-Leste we have nearly 2 million people, those have to be the destinataries of whatever thing we do. And I had a few, and that's why I wanted to change a few slides. Sorry, I wanted to show you a live demo of the Network Operations Center. We call it Panorama. Panorama is what gives us a view of what's happening in the network. We were setting up during the last year, but I cannot do live, but hopefully I have some screenshots. It's a screen in the computer with open source tools that gives an interactive map telling us exactly how is the network in every place. Now we are monitoring around, I will say, 20% of the installation, because we prioritize it to provide the access. Now we are, so why we have internet? That's it. No. Next is provide monitoring access for everybody, and later on the services that I commented, and do the peering, because when we are connecting between schools, again, we are going to Spain, which is not right. And in the map you will see, places like Biqueque, Dilor, and so on. And we can drill down, and we can see each, people who are used to manage networks know what I'm talking about. So it's about providing the same tools, but in this case, to the schools and to the community. And then have maps. This is a school in Dilor, in Biqueque. So it's very far from here, but we can see how are their access points, and call the teacher, hey, do you realize that there is one access point not working there, and so on? That's very powerful, and provide these kind of services to them. And lastly, and now finishing, is something that I wanted to share, because, because I have seen in other countries, and those are the pictures that I want to say. This picture comes from Ubud. You know Ubud in Bali? It's one of the most touristic places, and this is the bridge. So 10 years ago, were only trees, marvelous, and one of the biggest attraction points in Bali. Now, more than trees, what do you see? Cables. It's a disaster. Much more cables than actually people are in Ubud enjoying them. It's real. It's not artificial intelligence. I tell you, I took that picture personally. If you want to go to Ubud, you will see. Okay. Even more funny than that, this is also Ubud. At the same place, there are a lots of, you see, posts at the same place. I mean, the most expensive part when deploying fiber is the post, because sometimes it's metal, it's civil work that you have to do. The cable itself is cents per meter. And the cable of fiber is grams, much less weight than electricity cable, 10 times lighter. So finally they installed several posts. One for, why those posts? Oh, because competition doesn't make so, okay, but it's happening, it's real picture. Again, I mean, it's not artificial intelligence that you make a false picture. It's absolutely true. This other picture, because okay, so it's very common by the way, not only I have nothing against the Indonesians, but if you go to other ASEAN countries, you will see something like that. If you go to Darwin, it will be completely different, or to New Zealand. But here is Malacca. It's also another touristic place from an ASEAN country, not far from Indonesia, actually very next, but just on the other part of the street of Malacca. And Malacca is also the touristic place, the historical touristic place for Malaysia, right? And it's different. So, yeah, I didn't took a picture to the, you know, if you have been in Kuala Lumpur, tall buildings, everything crystal is like you are in the 23rd century or something like that. But I'm going to Malacca, the historical place, when the cables have to be aerial because no ducts and so on. And there are a few cables, you see them? There are a few, but not that much more ordered. So you may think, okay, maybe the people in Indonesia are much more well connected than the people in Malaysia. But actually, the reality is that, and get those, I'm going to take pictures from, well, but again, I mean, this is Colmera last week, Timor-Leste. 5 years ago was not like that. Were not that many cables. And that, oh, sorry. Oh, can I get the picture again? I mean, because I want to comment that. Oh, it's hidden by but this is the cable. Some cables go simply over the floor. Right, in Colmera Street, not to go so far. Why I'm saying that? I'm sorry, because I don't want to, I'm just trying to point a problem, not to be just critic and so on, and because it's important to do the things better. Because, yeah, if you look to what's happening in every country in terms of service and cost, you realize that, okay, Indonesia is much cheaper than here, but Malaysia is even better, and the service that commercial available to the citizens are much higher in terms of speed and so on. But it seems, oh, no cables. But the cables are there, they are doing, the difference is doing it with a bit more, let's say, responsibility. And responsibility from all of us. That's why I'm saying, I don't know how you call it, in Europe we call overbuilding. It's spending too much money. I mean, having more cables or more posts doesn't make a touristic place more sexy, of course. Actually, it's harmful for many things. I mean, in terms of materials, we are consuming impact to the planet, and the most important, in the cost. Then the things become much more expensive because you are spending 10 times what you have to spend. So at the end of the day, telcos want to be profitable and need to reduce the costs. And the best way to reduce the cost is not to have a road for everyone, but use a good road that everyone uses. We need a good road from going to Dili to Gleno. Whoever takes roads in Timor, they know what I'm talking about. The roads is a problem. But it's not a matter of doing more roads. It's a matter of doing a good roads with a good maintenance that everybody uses the road. 4 years ago was one fiber cable going from Dili to Gleno. Now I think it's every year I'm seeing more cables there. But more cables that actually people using, because in Gleno, I still have to go to the Elon Musk, that by the way, I mean, is already the most rich people in the world, because having no other alternatives. So that's what we have to, it clearly describes what has to be our objective in the very next future. It's good to become a part of ASEAN, but will be the advice here, or the most important, in particular when things get liberalized, is to be competitive. And overbuilding impacts the landscape. Timor-Leste landscape is very wonderful. Actually, it's one of the biggest assets because it's in many aspects is virgin. But if we end like Ubud and we destroy one of our biggest assets, which is our landscape, that will be sad. And we are on time for acting. And altogether I mean administration, government, regulators, but also we as citizens and academia and the operators, local operators, we have to work and we have to ensure that Timor-Leste becomes competitive, because if not, I mean, okay, if everybody installs Starlinks, that will be a disaster for the country, because it means that we are not doing the things properly, because Warren pointed very well yesterday. The cheaper way to send information right now, and the best technology, is the fiber and local. If we do the things local and we do the things properly, Timor-Leste will be competitive. If we have to go to the low orbit Earth and things like that, and something wrong we are doing, because it's not a big country. We can do very quickly, and actually the infrastructure is already there. So sorry for maybe I speak too much, but I think I'm done. The very last slides were, okay, looking forward for peering, wholesale, having neutral XP in Timor-Leste, better energy, of course. And happy to take questions. Sorry for being that long. I don't know if, I think we are a bit delayed on time, but again, I mean, today it was one of my happiest day in my life. I'm in my 60s, so that's my honest confession that I want to share with you.
Thank you very much, Ramon, for presenting us the very wonderful presentation. Before we move on, I'll let MC.
Thank you. Thank you, Mang Ramon, Senior Ramon. Please stay there, and then we have some gift to give to you. Mount Fabio. Mount Mananoni, can you come to represent us? Brigada, ita agora break ba coffee break for 15 minutes.
We are quite behind the schedule, so let's go have coffee and then back here in 50 minutes.
We will start again at 4:15 at Kolega Sira, sebele karek 15 minutes loss tambah tempo. Hela det oras sida para tukulima ita tu fila uma. Brigada.